Welcome, everyone, to the 2011 offseason. We are at the free agency week. As you can see here, the Cardinals bring in two guards, Steve Hutchinson and Adam Snyder, really helping their interior line. Michael Boley, Jimmy Williams on defense. 49ers bring in Packers wide receiver James Jones and rival St. Louis Rams running back Antonio Pittman. More of a backup role there. Then there's the Rams with Drew Stanton. He is the backup for the Patriots. He used to be a Saints starter, so he's going to be there to back up Jay Cutler in St. Louis. Lawrence Robinson, Dominique Foxworth, the wide receiver cornerback, Ryan Lacassie. Seattle brings in Deuce Latui, one of the better guards, and then Wade Smith at right tackle, and then Pisa Tinui Samoa. You see Chicago bringing in the Giants' Michael Turner, David Deal, Adam Carricker, and then Jason Babin. Babin was one of the Rookie of the Year candidates back in 2003, I believe, or 4, whenever it was he was a rookie. Then the Lions bring in Jason Hill from the Indianapolis Colts. He was the opposite receiver of Reggie Wayne. Not a high overall, but when Manning's throwing to him, everybody's a high overall. Right guard Dan Stevenson and right tackle Jordan Gross go to the Lions because Leonard Davis left Detroit as right tackle, and he left Detroit for Green Bay. David Garrard goes there as a backup. He has had good and bad seasons. He's been with the Houston Texans for the past couple of years and just hasn't won with them. He's been a decent quarterback when he was with Seattle and even Jacksonville, but now he is probably going to back up, if not challenge, Matthew Stafford for the starting job with the Packers. And then defensive player like Victor Abiamiri, whatever, and Hilly Taylor. And the Vikings bring in backup running back Pierre Thomas from the Saints. They get tight end Scott Chandler from Denver. Trevor Price, who's been an elite defensive end across the league. I think he was with the San Diego Chargers last year. And then safety Josh Bullocks. Tampa Bay brings in Matt Schaub after Byron Leftwich left. Even though Leftwich took them to the Super Bowl, he decided he did not want to re-sign with the Buccaneers. And they also lost Dante Culpepper to the big injury, so they had no quarterbacks. They are likely to draft a quarterback in this upcoming draft, but Matt Schaub was let go from the Baltimore Ravens because he had a bad 1-5 start with them. So he might be the starter, or the rookie might be the starter. We see Eric Barton from Cleveland, outside linebacker, and Scott Starks on defense. Zach Miller, who is the 07 Zach Miller, I believe. He's the one that was drafted by the Packers and was like a 59 overall. He never amounted to anything. They also bring Dallas Sartz in. Panthers didn't have as many targets. I mean, they are pretty much a solid team. It's more about keeping their players than it is about adding new ones. So Andre Dixon ends up being the signing. Josh McDaniels Saints, they bring in offensive lineman Doug Dadish, Julian Jenkins as DT. They do sign Denver's Al Wilson, and so Denver had a really bad year. Coaching changes. Al Wilson, who's been a staple for them, is now with the Saints. Then we see a load of safety, C.C. Brown, Sabby Piscatelli, and Patriots Kurt Campbell, all going to the Saints to help their defensive backfield. So again, the Saints offense is pretty much intact, but their defense has been really improved this free agency period. Then Dallas brings in Mike DeVito. Mike Okwo. Okwo was the Eagles' left outside linebacker for many years, so they pick up a divisional opponent. Then Kabir Jabalja Bialima also goes to them. He was with the Packers. He was somewhere else for the past few seasons, but is now taking his trip to Dallas. And then Chris McAllister, the former Raven and Dolphins cornerback, the old man, coming to Detroit or to Dallas to help out the Cowboys. Eagles bring in Kevin Cobb. So in real life, Cobb was drafted by the Eagles. In my franchise, Cobb ended up going to the Rams and just never really had a chance to play. Last year, he was with the Cleveland Browns and just did not do well. But Eagles wanted a better backup than Thaddeus Lewis, so Kevin Cobb is that backup role for McNabb. We will see what McNabb's real overall is in Madden 24 when I get those updated rosters, because right now McNabb is a top QB, and we'll see if that changes. Then Anthony Waters, also coming from Cleveland, the middle linebacker. That's a good addition for them. John Bowie, and Adrian Wilson. So Adrian Wilson, the major signing there, one of the best safeties in the league, now joining the Philadelphia Eagles. And then linebacker Brandon Chiller. Giants get out there for guards, Leroy Harris and Chris Kimawatu. And they also get Bengals kicker Sebastian Janikowski, the iron leg kicker. Then Washington brings in Mewelde Moore. He was with the Cardinals. They bring in fullback Manuel White, Joel Dreesen, Jeremy Newberry, and Jarris Wilkinson. So Washington making some moves there. Now with some AFC teams, we see Denver signing Josh McCown, who did a pretty good job as Michael Vick's backup in Washington. He never started a game, but he would fill in frequently because Vick would get hurt. But now he is going to Denver to potentially challenge Sam Bradford, because Sam Bradford's had a really bad year as a rookie. They have a new head coach coming in. So we have to see whether the Broncos are going to go in a different direction if Bradford really sucks. But this is, Doug Marrone, the new coach, might make that decision. Also, we see Ahmad Bradshaw coming from the Patriots. Bradshaw looked really good as a backup running back to Charles. Bubba Franks coming over from the Colts. Jonathan Lewis, Marcus Griffin, Kyle Vanden Bosch, all some defensive players there helping Denver. Kansas City only lands a wide receiver in Jericho Cotchery. He ended up being a backup wide receiver for the Steelers. He came over with more potential, or he was in Pittsburgh with more potential, but they kept having better receivers or younger prospects that they ended up using, so he just kind of dropped in his status. Chargers signed a backup QB, Trent Edwards. They had J.P. Losman for a while. Now they have Trent Edwards for a while. I guess they just like the old Buffalo Bills real-life quarterbacks as their backups. Oakland brings in Craig Davis. I do like that decision. I think that's going to help them in the receiving core. Bobby Petrino brought in Donald Driver, who retired. They have Chad Ochocinco, these really old receivers. So they need to get younger and faster, so Craig Davis helps that. And then really good signings on the defense. Kalimba Edwards from Detroit. You got Channing Crowder from the Chiefs. Trumaine McBride. All very solid defensive players who will likely contribute to Hugh Jackson's defense. Then we have the Cincinnati Bengals, right, with Billy Miller, Marcus Johnson, Dan Copen, Steelers DE James Harrison. And so Harrison hasn't really been that high of an overall in this franchise for some reason. But I think in Madden 24's 2011 roster, he might be better than he's been. And then Josh Houston at kicker. Browns bring in University of Akron wide receiver Dominic Hickson. Hickson has been a decent return man and a decent receiver. We see tight end Ben Watson coming over from Buffalo. In real life, Watson became a Brown a year ago in real life, but now Watson, at I believe 30 or 31 years old, is now a Cleveland Brown. And they also signed Patriots middle linebacker E.J. Henderson, who's been an anchor for the Patriots linebacking core. So New England needs to replace him, and the Browns now get a solid middle linebacker replacing Anthony Waters. The Ravens signed Texans running back Willie Parker, Kevin Boss on the Patriots, Roberto Garza, and then the old man but veteran Simeon Rice. I've started doing that with teams that have solid defenses, is that, you have a good pass rusher, but then there's all these older good pass rushers. And so I figure, add some depth to this pass rush, and Simeon Rice is going to do that. Pittsburgh has some good signings here. So Devery Henderson, who was first-round pick by the Carolina Panthers, and he's been the number 2 to Steve Smith, and he's very quick and fast. So they lose Jericho Cotchery, but they bring in Devery Henderson. If Hines Ward is still sticking around, they still have him, and I've been waiting for him to retire. But the Steelers have a decent receiving core like Malcolm Kelly, who's not rated high, but he has been a solid contributor. And now they bring in Devery Henderson as well, who is the speedster. They bring in Kellen Winslow, who hasn't been on a team for a bit, and I'm kind of attributing that to off-the-field issues. He was with Detroit for a while. He was the second overall pick in 04 or 05, whenever he was drafted. And he's been really good for Detroit, but then he finally got let go, and no one really signed him. And so I'm saying he had a motorcycle accident in real life. He had some off-the-field issues, but Pittsburgh is taking a chance with him. But then the biggest signing, is Tamba Hawley. The fact that Hawley did not resign with his team is just shocking to me because I thought Holly was a good anchor for his team, but now he is with the Steelers. So they have Elvis Dumerville and Tamba Holly, and they also signed Jarvis Moss, who was a top pick, but he, of course, does not have a high overall. But Pittsburgh getting some big pieces there for their defense and offense. Buffalo gets Tyler Thigpen from the Lions. They also were in a bidding battle between Cleveland for D'Angelo Williams, but they win that battle. So Cleveland has to find another running back somewhere else. But D'Angelo Williams, really good runner, but unfortunately he just needed a change in scenery, and so he is choosing the Buffalo Bills, and that is over the Chicago Bears. Then we have Mike Sims-Walker, Lamar Woodley, who's a big signing there from Pittsburgh. Anthony Weaver, another big defensive end, older but still solid. And they get Eagles free safety Brian Dawkins. Dawkins kind of was getting replaced after the draft of Earl Thomas. So the Eagles last year decided to get a young, powerful safety, and that just kind of forced Dawkins out. But I still love Dawkins. Great player, just getting older. Dolphins get the Super Bowl appearance, Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback Byron Leftwich. We will see if the Dolphins get a quarterback in the draft. They are in the second seed or the second draft pick behind the Packers, and it's not likely the Packers are going to draft a quarterback. So they might be getting a Cam Newton or Jake Locker or someone like that. But they do have Byron Leftwich to be kind of a middleman. We see Turk McBride, Clifton Ryan, Travis Fisher, and Tank Williams, all defensive prospects helping out the Miami Dolphins. Then Antoine Barnes, the Jets a new acquisition for the Jets. Patriots always have tight salary cap, but they do get Tony Hunt. He's a good addition there because they lost Ahmad Bradshaw. And so they still have Jamal Charles, but they do pick up the Detroit running back, Tony Hunt, to help their backup. And then Jeff King, they end up signing as they lost Kevin Boss. They lost Billy Bajima 2 years ago to Cleveland. They lost Boss this year to the Ravens, and now they get Jeff King. And they do sign Eric Steinbach, who has been a very solid Ravens offensive guard, but he's getting older, and so the Patriots are able to fill that guard spot. Then the Colts bring in quarterback Brady Quinn. So Quinn was a Chicago Bears first-round pick, never had success there with Chicago. Then he's been the backup for Pittsburgh the last 2 years. And when he's started, he's done fairly well. He's won a fair amount of games. He plays well, but now he's going from one backup spot to the next, which is the backup for Peyton Manning. The reason that the Colts were looking for a better backup is because they have Tony Pike, who's a 55 overall sophomore, and he is not anywhere near as solid as Brady Quinn is. And this is the year that I might have Manning be on injured reserve because this is the year he had his neck injury. So Brady Quinn could be the starting quarterback for the Colts this year, and we'll see if he's able to have a better year than Kerry Collins and Curtis Painter. They do also sign Terrell Brown, good cornerback signing there. Jacksonville getting Dwayne Jarrett, so that was a good acquisition for them from the Oakland Raiders. They also sign O-line with Tyson Clabo and Joe Berger. And they get Darryl Smith, probably one of the best defensive linebackers in this free agent class, along with Keith Ellison. So they get some linebacking help, some O-line help, and another receiving option. Texans bring in Reggie Williams, who is the star receiver for the San Francisco 49ers. And he's actually so far almost has been the better Williams between Reggie Williams and Roy Williams. He is now joining Houston, who had no talent at wide receiver last year. So yeah, we can blame David Garrard for not being as successful winning games in Houston, but we can also blame the crappy receivers. They also signed center Andre Garrard and Jay Ratliff, and Will Herring. Then the Titans bring in Brian Calhoun at running back. That's more of a filler position there. O-lineman and Tony Ugo and Dylan Gandy. Ugo leaves Arizona after the Cardinals draft a prospect last year, and so the Cardinals are likely to take on moving on from Ugo, so the Titans take advantage of that. Oreen Harris at DT, and then probably the biggest signing of the free agency period is D'Angelo Hall. Hall has been absolutely fantastic. DB, but has decided to take on free agency, and he is now a Titan. And they also have Josh Gaddis at safety. The first of 3 trades this offseason, we have the Cleveland Browns going for Peyton Hillis, giving up a 6th-round pick for the fullback. Hillis has actually been doing a very good job at fullback, even though last year was technically the year he was supposed to take off and have the Madden cover. But he has had 18 rushing touchdowns in the last 3 years. 2 years ago, he had 10 touchdowns. So he has been kind of the power back for Seattle, and the Browns decided that since they missed out on Williams, let's go ahead and get Peyton Hillis. Seattle making another move, sending their 5th-round pick to the Dallas Cowboys to pick up Braylon Edwards. Edwards has been pretty decent for the Cowboys. However, Dallas has a new head coach, and new head coach wants a new system. So Mike Shanahan has decided that he'd rather have the 5th-round pick than Braylon Edwards to build around, and so Edwards is going to be a Seattle Seahawk. And then there's a big trade here. Randy Moss is leaving the New England Patriots. Why would they do that? Well, they did trade for Andre Johnson, who was a huge addition for them. And since acquiring Andre Johnson, the Patriots have not missed the Super Bowl and have not lost the Super Bowl. Now, Randy Moss is a large part of that, but Randy Moss is getting a lot older. And they also have a lot of good young receivers. The reason why I wasn't even inclined to trade for Andre Johnson was because they have Brandon Tate and they have Josh Morgan, 2 young receivers who have, under Brady, been really dynamic. But then all of a sudden, Andre Johnson comes in and takes up most of the reps. And so this is the time where the Patriots had to decide, do I want to keep Randy Moss and delay the development of these young receivers, or do I make the move and trade him? And so they get a 4th-round pick for Randy Moss. The San Francisco 49ers make a move to bring in Moss as they lost Reggie Williams. So Drew Brees has a new favorite target. And as you can see right there, I mean, Moss is a 1-star prospect for some reason, and mostly probably because he's old. And they get a 4th-round pick, and so the Patriots are more than happy with that. As much as I hate to break up the duo, Johnson-Moss combo, I think the Patriots are going to be really happy with Andre Johnson leading the way from here on out, with Morgan and Tate taking more reps. As when Andre Johnson and Randy Moss were injured this season, both of those receivers stepped up in a big way. So the Patriots are just saving cap space and moving on. There will likely be more signings than this, but this is the free agency period in the offseason. Normally when I do this specific video, I have already finished my offseason and I've already filled my roster in, and I include all of those players that were signed after the draft when I fill my roster, with the exception of undrafted rookies. But because I am transitioning from Madden 22 to Madden 24, I am not doing the roster fills yet. I'm going to fill the rosters with Madden 24 because there might be players who are retired, or there might be players who are retired in my league right now who are going to be available in free agency in Madden 24's Madden 11 roster. So bear with me on that, but these were the off-season acquisitions.